Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Backcourt Press with your host, Hunter Metnick here. I'm here to discuss my thoughts and opinions on everything that happened in the recent days of basketball. I'm trying to do one every single day. Yesterday I didn't get mine out for the 8th, which was Monday, because I filmed a podcast yesterday, also which I call Backcourt Press because I call it the same thing. So go check that out. I'll put the link in the description, and it's also just right on my YouTube page, also on I-95 Sports Network. But yeah, before I get into anything, please feel free to comment any opinions you have on any of the stuff I'm discussing today. I will be discussing stuff from the 8th. As I said earlier, I'll probably double post or triple post today, and also talk about yesterday's games and the G League, because the G League's kind of going to be fun this year, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But follow me on Instagram at Backcourt Press. Follow me on Twitter. Tweet at me anything you want at Backcourt Press _. And without further ado, I got some notes here. Let's get right into it. So on the 8th of February, which was Monday, we had some pretty fun games, including the main ones I wanted to talk about that I watched personally were the Hornets-Rockets game. Watched a lot of that game where LaMelo dropped 24, 7, and 10. I watched the Spurs-Warriors game where Draymond Green kind of sold, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And I watched a little bit of the Bucks-Nuggets game because that was the one on television. So without further ado, LaMelo Ball is a stud. And as a Warriors fan with the number 2 pick, we passed on LaMelo Ball. And I'm not going to say anything about it yet because Wiseman's still very young, and it's with Steph Curry. You have to be in a win-now situation. And James Wiseman, I think, brings the best chances of us winning due to the fact that he will be a dominant center in this league at some point, and he's still progressing. But LaMelo Ball, though, is the perfect player for the Charlotte Hornets team. He put up 24 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds in one of his starts again. I think he had 34 the night before. He had 7 threes last night, which I'll get into in a different video. But he is just an incredible just ball handler. He can see the floor incredibly well. He's his brother with a jump shot and confidence, in my opinion. He has all the confidence in the world to do whatever he feels like he can do on the court. And he's making players. I mean, everyone's always seen Terry Rozier, even his days as a Boston Celtic, as kind of an on-ball player. He needs the ball in his hands. That's why they traded Kemba Walker for him, because they thought he had the potential to become a dominant on-ball player like Kemba Walker. And next thing you know, he's become a very good catch and shoot player for this Hornets team. And with Devontae Graham missing some time, he's really stepped up as a spot up shooter, and LaMelo's shots also falling. So my first note for this day was LaMelo is amazing. Even though losing this game as for the Houston Rockets against the Hornets, my next thing is about this game as well, where I wanted to say, Houston, ever since that they have handled, or no, hold on, Houston, ever since the James Harden trade, have handled that situation incredibly well, whether it's the players wanting him out and understanding that, to the management just really doing everything they can to keep their players' confidence up. This team looks solid out there, and they don't even have Christian Wood right now due to injury. But in this game, they didn't even have John Wall, but some of the players that they have on this team, including like Jae'Sean Tate, Victor Oladipo had a big game. Jae'Sean Tate started at the point guard position, I'm pretty sure. They're giving Sterling Brown, or no, Shannon Brown. No, Sterling Brown. I was correct. Jeez, I can't believe I just said Shannon Brown. Sterling Brown, 28 minutes a game. David Nwaba, 32 minutes a game. Ben McLemore, 18 minutes a game. And these guys are contributing really well. Although David Nwaba had the worst plus minus on the team at -22, his defensive presence was there. And if he gets a jump shot, this Houston Rockets team's actually giving him a chance, which is really, really cool to me to see. Demarcus Cousins in the starting lineup has been okay. I would like to see him a little bit more aggressive and trying to be like his old self. This team really needs to go out and just trade PJ Tucker away, in my personal opinion. PJ Tucker just doesn't bring anything to the court anymore. He played 23 minutes this night and shot 0 for 3 from 3 and at a plus minus of -16. His defensive presence isn't there. I'm just not a big PJ Tucker fan. I think he just doesn't care anymore. On the court, it just really doesn't look like he cares. And then, I'll talk about last night, actually, because last night he shot 3 for 7, 1 for 2 from the field, 7 points against the Pelicans, and had a plus minus of -24. I just don't think PJ Tucker fits the timeline and the attitude that this team has. And I'd like to see him go to a contending team and be that 3-and-D player that, that he once was. So that's all I got to say about the Houston Rockets. I'm just happy about how they've handled everything. And Victor Oladipo has been playing great. I don't know if I want to see Victor Oladipo end the season as a Houston Rocket, especially on the last year of his deal. I think the Rockets are better off getting value of possibly a younger player and a second round pick, kind of like the Derrick Rose trade for him, even though he's way better than Derrick Rose is. Being on a 1-year deal, you kind of would have to make a trade like that just to give him up to a contender. But Houston's attitude's looking good, and I think this team, if they could stay healthy, would be contending for an 8 seed. Last thing I want to talk about this game is Malik Monk, because I wrote down Malik Monk either plays like Michael Jordan or Deion Waiters, and there's no in between. If he has all the confidence in the world and his shots are hitting, I have not. His skill set on the offensive side, his catch and shoots, his off the dribble mid range shots, his driving to the basket, it's fantastic, and you can tell lineups of Lamelo at the 1, Malik Monk at the 2, and Miles Bridges at the 3, kind of as the second unit to the Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, is looking great. We haven't seen Malik Monk play like we expect him to when they picked him in the lottery, and he's finally starting to play very well for this team. I don't think his stats say that as much, but I remember this night, I think he had like 3 to 5 straight possessions where he just shot the ball every time. Yeah, he shot 6 for 11, 2 for 5 from 3, 5 assists, and end up with 14 points in 26 minutes. But when he was on the court, he was just a dominant offensive player. He kept the spread. But then he'd make like 3 shots in a row, and then like he'd get subbed out, he'd come back and he would miss like 4 shots. And I'm like, dude, like there's just no in between with this guy. He's either on or he's off. And so I mentioned in my podcast yesterday that I think that Malik Monk could be included in a Bradley Beal trade for this team, and that would be pretty cool. I'd love to see Bradley Beal next to LaMelo Ball. And Malik Monk, I said Malik Monk, Rozier, and like 2 firsts for Bradley Beal. Something interesting. I was just throwing it out there that Charlotte should make the push for him. But Malik Monk's a funny player, and I loved watching him play on the court during this Rockets game. But I thought it was a very fun game to watch. The next game I said I was going to talk about was the Spurs Warriors game. The first note I have about this is Steph Curry is an undisputed top 5 player in the NBA, and possibly he's number 3. The only 2 players I would put ahead of him right now would probably be LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Giannis is playing great, but he's leading a better team than Curry has around him, and Steph Curry has just been incredible. Some of the way he's affected that Warriors team, built confidence back up, and just everything about this Warriors team would be nowhere near what they are without Steph Curry. He's having an MVP caliber season. No one's talking about it because of the fact that the centers and Jokic and Embiid are doing great. Kevin Durant and the Nets are doing great. They just don't have the record to be an MVP caliber team. And he's not. I mean, but if you look at his numbers, he's very close in number wise to his unanimous MVP season. Obviously, they're not winning as many games. I don't think you'd expect them to with this whole change and not having a center for a couple of games now. And Steph Curry is older, and they don't have Klay Thompson, which you can tell is affecting them. But Kelly Oubre is starting to pick it up, which actually leads me right into my next note, which is Kelly Oubre is finding his groove. He had that huge game against Dallas, which was awesome to see. And when he started the season, I'd hate when he shot threes, and now he's starting to shoot threes and still be energetic on both sides of the court. And it's exactly what the Warriors signed him for, traded, I guess, for him to do. Just be that energy player and hit open threes. And I'm very glad about how he's handled his terrible shooting stroke. He never seemed like he lost confidence. And now that they're finally starting to hit, you could see just the team in general is better. It lets Wiggins kind of play off ball, which I love Wiggins. I think he's an incredible defender and off ball player. If you really watch Warriors games, you can see how impactful he is on the defensive side. And when he wants to get a mid-range bucket, he will get you a mid-range bucket. And I think Steph Curry really gave him the confidence, along with Draymond Green on the defensive side, to just be himself. And him and Kelly Oubre started off really slow, and they've both worked their way up. And Zach and I, my fellow co-host on the Backcourt Press podcast, was talking about who is that third team in the West. And I think the Jazz right now are the undisputed third team. But if you look after the LA teams in Utah, you got teams like Phoenix, you got teams like Portland, Dallas, I would say, but they're playing very rough right now. There's just all these like teams right in the middle. And I'm probably going to take the Warriors to be that 4 team. If they play the way that they have been, they're lethal offensively. And when they get Wiseman and Looney back, those are just 2 players that are going to dominate the inside. So we also got the Spurs in there. So it's just the other team that actually ended up beating the Warriors. They got killed last night for when I'm uploading this. But the next thing I had to say, I'm not going to talk about Murray. I'll talk about him in my next video. But Keldon Johnson's very good. His versatility, he came into the league, he was very kind of looked shy, looked quiet on the court, didn't do much. He's turned into an energetic player, and I love what this Spurs team has done. They looked like they would be one of the worst teams in the NBA if you base it off of their like just pure talent. it seemed like they just would not match up well against other teams. But then you have like Keldon Johnson taking a step, DeMar DeRozan becoming one of the best playmaking forwards in the NBA. Lonnie Walker's hitting open shots. He's been on a cold streak recently, but he's still a phenomenal, he's a good young player who's still growing. And Keldon Johnson, to me, is the most promising player on this team just because of his pure offensive skill set. I know you could say Dejounte Murray. I think Dejounte Murray's going to get better, but I don't know how much better he can get from what he's at right now. But Keldon Johnson the sky's the limit for this guy. I think he could be a top 20 player at some point in his career if he can keep up this just streak he's doing. I think he's done a great job at the small forward position for this team so far. And the night that they beat the Warriors, he ended up with, or actually on the season, he's leading the team in rebounds with 7.1 and 14 points in 30 minutes of play. And honestly, he's just been a very impactful player. If I pull it up, the statistics right here, he only had 9 points, actually. I can't believe I wrote that off after 9 points. Maybe I didn't watch this game as much as I thought, but he had a plus minus, and they only won by 5. So I think that tells you something. Yeah, I composed 14 and 11 this game. Very interesting. Didn't expect to see that. Dejounte Murray actually had a very, very big game in 27, 10, and 8 steals and 4 assists. And then Draymond Green sold by shooting that half-court shot. I think if in all honesty, he thought he got fouled by Derek White. And so he chucked up the shot to get 3 free throws. But if you really look, there was no contact at all. There's a little contact before the shot, which is why I think he thought he could get the foul off. But there's no excuse not to give the ball to Steph Curry down 3 with 8 seconds left. So, I mean, it's a regular season game. Draymond understands what he did was wrong. DeMar DeRozan ended this game with 10 assists, and they won by 5 because of that Draymond shot, in my opinion. I think if they go into overtime, the Warriors had all the momentum in the world going into that last shot, and so Steph Curry ended with 32. Kelly Oubre had 9 for 16, 24 points. Another big game from Kelly Oubre here, so made me happy to see the Warriors starting to click a little bit. And then the next game that they played them, and they absolutely destroyed. They destroyed the Spurs by like 23, I believe. So this Warriors team and the Spurs team are both going to be those mid-tier playoff teams, in my opinion. And I'm gonna trust Steph Curry over anyone on that Spurs team right now. The last 2 things I have to talk about from this night is I want to talk about the Sacramento Kings and how underlooked they are. I think Darren Fox is making Luke Walton look like one of the best coaches in the NBA right now, when really Luke Walton is still not a good NBA coach. But Darren Fox is an undisputed all-star this season, and I don't care what anyone says. Right now, the Sacramento Kings are sitting at a record of let me pull it up right here. They're the 9th seed right now at 12-12, and Darren Fox has led a really bad team. I think Marvin Bagley will always go down as one of the worst number 2 picks in NBA history, just because he was taken in front of like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, and right behind DeAndre Ayton, who's looked incredible. But Darren's averaging 23-7, 1 steal, 3 rebounds, in 33 minutes of play, which is 3rd on his team behind guys like Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes even. He's just been such a great player for this team. You can see the impact Tyrese Halliburton brings off the bench for this team. But Darren Fox, the Lakers really messed up by drafting Lonzo Ball over this guy because he is explosive. He looks like John Wall in his prime. And everyone knows John Wall in his prime was a top 5 point guard in the NBA. And Darren Fox needs to be talked about as a top 5, 6, 7 point guard in this league because he's just dominating with the ball and he's winning games. They won, I believe, when I checked, it was like 5 out of their last 7. I don't know about because I believe they lost last night, but it was 5 out of their last 7 games that they had won, and they've just looked good. They were on that 4-game. They were on a 4-game win streak going into the Sixers game last night, which they lost because MVP Joel Embiid came up big. But yeah, 6 out of their last 7, actually, not even 5 out of their last 6 or 5. Yes, 5 out of the last 7, 6 out of the last 7 games that they won, and Darren Fox is the entire reason for that, in my personal opinion. So good for De'Aaron Fox, man. And Buddy Hield, there was so many trade rumors with him in previous seasons. And next thing you know, he's starting to hit his threes and find chemistry with this team. So I think he still will get traded. I don't see him being a Sacramento King for very long time because this team's going to have to strictly build around Tyrese Halliburton at some point, along with De'Aaron Fox in that backcourt. And I think Buddy Hield's going to be the odd man out because those 2 players are really good. Last thing I want to talk about that I have written down is why are the Cleveland Cavaliers why do they have such bad rotations? The Cleveland Cavaliers, on the night that I watched them, I believe it was against the Milwaukee Bucks. They they were playing a lineup of Jarrett Allen at the 4 and Andre Drummond at the 5. And I think they had like Isaac Okoro, Colin Sexton, and Darius Garland out there, or maybe it was Jetty Osman at the 3. I don't know. But I don't care what the excuse is. If this was in the fourth quarter, by the way, if you were in the fourth quarter losing a game, they end up losing this game by 25 against the Bucks, and then they lost by 6 against the Suns. If you are going to be in the fourth quarter of a close game or against a team that maybe you shouldn't be, but you should, the Cavs have been competitive. They're 10-15 in the NBA right now, or as a record wise. And if you're going to compete against teams like that, you in no way, shape, or form can have Jarrett Allen and Andre Drummond on the court at the same time. Neither of them can shoot free throws. They're both paint beasts where they'll get rebounds. Yeah, no one's going to rebound on you. No one's going to drive into the paint. But once one of them gets drawn out to the perimeter, they're screwed out there. Your defensive just settings. Darius Garland's not a great defender. Colin Sexton's an average defender. Isaac Okoro's a rookie. Yes, you could have good paint defense, but one of them gets brought out there. Your defense is just not going to be good. It's just plain and simple like that. And so I don't understand that rotation at all and how you could ever end a game. I know they're 2 of your top players on the team, but look for one of these 2 players to get moved by the trade deadline. Hopefully JaVale McGee can get moved as well, and Kevin Love can come back eventually and bring this team some veteran leadership that it desperately, desperately needs, because they lost confidence. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now, and they've lost 6 out of their last 7 games, and their only one is a 2-point win against the Timberwolves. And so this was the team that beat the Brooklyn Nets 2 straight games, not even 3 weeks ago. And so very interesting team. I just don't understand the rotations that you could be doing if Jarrett Allen and Andre Drummond are in the lineup together, because they just don't mesh. Maybe in 2K, I know in NBA 2K, my leagues, you could run the double center thing and it works great, but not in real life. So that's really all I got. I'll look at any of the other games from the 8th and see if I have any thoughts on any of them, which include, the Wizards winning against the Bulls. Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine have their offensive performances, 2 defensive bad teams. We talked a little bit about Coby White in my podcast. I'll go in a little bit on him and the fact that just he's a shooting guard. He's a 6'3" shooting guard and not going to be a good enough playmaker to be next to Zach LaVine for a very long time. So hopefully they can. I've been a big fan of that trade. That's Alonzo Ball for Coby White swap, because I think that'll let Bledsoe run the 1 and finally let Bledsoe be the playmaker of the Pelicans and not really win now. They're still progressing, but they want to be competitive. And then Lonzo Ball goes to play next to Zach LaVine, where their games would mesh perfectly, in my opinion, especially over Coby White. And so that's really all I got to say about them. I didn't watch this game at all. Fred VanVleet put up 32 points against the Grizzlies. Fred VanVleet's a fantastic player. Malik Beasley has not been talked about at all. And a game that they lost to the Mavericks by 5, Beasley put up 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. And he's just been, anytime they need an open 3 or a bucket, they go to Malik Beasley or D'Angelo Russell, and they both have been there. The Timberwolves have a lot to do, though. They need Karl-Anthony Towns to come back, and that's really all I have to say about the Timberwolves. Mavericks are finally starting to win. Hopefully they can pick it up. The Lakers almost lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an all-star. That's how I'm going to end this off, because he's one of my favorite young players in the NBA, and he really deserves an all-star spot for carrying this Thunder team to 10-13, along with Darius Bazley. Darius Bazley's not playing as great as an all-star, but Shai is really carrying this young Thunder team to a near 500 record, and he deserves an all-star bid in just his 3rd year of the NBA, in my personal opinion. That's going to wrap it up. A lot of talking, so hope maybe I'll have enough voices to record another one. But thank you all for watching. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Backcourt Press, Twitter at Backcourt Press with an _. Subscribe, like, comment, and obviously, as I just said, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Hunter Metnick, where we'll be doing constant NBA talk. Thank you all for watching, and peace.